Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing all right today. If you've been with me on a few of these kind of live streams lately, you might be saying, I'm seeing a lot of him this week. I wanted to just take a few moments to talk about the first chapter of The Words of Life, a book by Adam Hamilton that we have started doing a kind of weekly study on. And that first study began yesterday. We're meeting on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock, kind of doing it by Zoom. And so if you're interested in joining in with me for those, please let me know and I'll make sure that you get that link. But I also realize that being in kind of the middle of the day, that it means that some folks won't be able to participate who might want to. And so each week I'll try and do just a little brief recap of some of the things that we talked about in that study, so that one, if you want to kind of grab the book and read it yourself, you can still get a little bit of kind of that the benefit of that study brought to you as well. Or if you don't have time to read the book, you're not going to be able to read it, but you want just kind of a taste of what it is that some of the rest of the church members here are doing, you can do that by watching these videos. As you can see, I'm doing this live currently, but we'll keep the live stream link up. You can access it on Facebook, is where you're probably getting that right now. And so even if you don't catch it while I'm doing this, you'll be able to watch at any point. So I think that when I started figuring out what to do for this study, for this series, I was excited to hear that Adam Hamilton had come out with a new book. I have read some of his previous books and always find them well thought out and engaging. But he talks about at the beginning of the book that when he told his wife that he was going to be doing a study about the Ten Commandments, that her response in some ways was like, well, why are you going to do that? Like, why choose the Ten Commandments? And his response to her, I think, was kind of the response that was meaningful to me and might make you understand a little bit too about why it is we're doing this. He says, the Ten Commandments, we think of them as a lot of thou shalt nots, but that when we kind of look at the historical context in which they were written, especially as Christians, as we look at how kind of Jesus viewed the words that were said, how he lived them out, and that we also see behind some of those thou shalt nots, some of the thou shalls, some of the promises that God gives us. We kind of come to understand why it is that God wants us to do these things and why they are so important, why they're kind of the top 10 list of commandments from the Old Testament, even as there are other things that God calls us to do beyond those. Kind of the words that Hamilton uses frequently are that these 10 commandments are guideposts and guardrails for our lives. And I think that that's a fantastic way of thinking about that. So the first commandment that is written for us in Exodus and in Deuteronomy, the first commandment that we talked about in our study yesterday is this, and I'm going to read it. And as I do, I will say that we do also talk about how different denominations within Christianity, that different groups, that Jewish folks as well, we kind of number the Ten Commandments differently. That what we call the first one might not be exactly the dividing line where someone else divides it out. But this is at least kind of what mainline Protestants say is the dividing line for the first commandment. Then God spoke all of these words. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, and you have no other gods before me. You must have no other gods before me. The Israelites were coming out of Egypt as Moses receives these 10 commandments on Mount Sinai. They have lived in a place where they have been exposed to hundreds, if not thousands, of gods, of idols, of these foreign deities. They've come from a place where they were at the bottom of the hierarchy in society. They were the slaves of the Egyptians. And so they hear this as the first commandment. I am the Lord your God. And what we kind of hear in this study is how you here, the your is even singular, that it is a personal thing that God is saying to the Israelites, to each one of them. I am your God. These gods that you were exposed to in this time of oppression, in this land of oppression, well, one, we would say they are false and nothing, but they have no care for you. I care for you. I love you. I am yours and you are mine. I am rescuing you from Egypt as a sign of this relationship that we have with each other. So don't have any other gods before me. Whether it's those or whether it's from the land where you are about to be taken. Hamilton also talks about how there are just so many things that, we put in the place of our hearts where God alone should occupy, that we don't really find ourselves in danger of worshiping a God that's not God. We don't worship idols, but that we do put a lot of things in the place of God in our lives that shouldn't be there. Whether that's the pursuit of money or accolades, whether that's putting our jobs first, whether that's putting other people in our lives above where God should be, whether that's kind of giving so much of our time to our hobbies that those become what are primary to us, the things that we look for our joy in. And that when we do that, we don't experience the kind of life God wants us to have. We're kind of the poorer for it when we don't have God as primary for us. If I can find this quote really quick. Here it is. Adam Hamilton says that when I began my study of the 10 Commandments, I could think of 5 or 6 commandments that I wrestled with in one way or another, but the first commandment didn't come to mind. The more I reflected on what constitutes a false god, however, the more I realized that this might be the commandment that I'm most tempted to break. Goodness, there are so many examples that he goes through, but the one that kind of stuck out to me the most was that there would be a time in Israel's history, or in Israel's history, farther up ahead beyond when they received these. So not in their past in Egypt, but that when the Israelites would be tempted to worship this god Molech. Who kind of required child sacrifice. And we even hear about one of the kings of Israel sacrificing one of his children in this kind of horrific ceremony. And that again, none of us are ever tempted to do such a thing, but that there are times when parents and grandparents sacrifice the relationship they have with their children or their grandchildren by putting things that are less important above the things that are important. A reminder to us to keep our lives in a correct order, to remember what it is that is most important, to sure remember that our families are more important than our hobbies and our jobs. But to remember also that above all else, that God stands as primary over it all. And that when we have this correct ordering in life, we find so many blessings coming to us because we're not chasing after the wrong things. So one of the things Hamilton also does that I've really enjoyed so far in this study is to kind of frame things through the lens of how Jesus taught and lived what these commandments mean for us. And at the end of this first chapter, he even just kind of says, all right, I think this is what Jesus might be saying to us about the first commandment. And so I'm going to kind of end into this video with these words. What Jesus might say to you about the first commandment. My Father says to you that I am your God. I have delivered you in the past, and I will deliver you in the future. I've loved you as a parent loves a child, as a selfless spouse loves their beloved. I want you to have no other gods before me, because when you make something else your God, you are diminished, not enriched. If you love me with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, if you seek first my kingdom, you'll find so much more than if you'd made something else your God. I plead with you, have no other gods before me. Well, thank you for joining with me for these few moments. Again, if you want to be with us for our next session over Zoom, know that you can do that. Next Tuesday at 2:00, contact me and I'll get you the link if you don't have it. If you do join in with that, you might want to pick up the book. You might want to pick up the book and just read it, even if you're not with us. But otherwise, know that you can kind of catch up a little bit with me and with our study over these videos. So I will do one of these again next week too. But God be with you. I'll talk to you later.